So news came out earlier this morning that the Packers are attempting to interview, they've requested to interview 2 new defensive coordinator candidates, both of whom are on the Ravens defensive staff. First off here from Ian Rappaport, the Packers requested to speak with Ravens secondary coach Dennard Wilson for their vacant defensive coordinator job, source said. He's also interviewing with the Titans today for their DC job, and the Rams and Giants have talked to him as well. And then also here we have from Tom Pelissero, the Packers requested to interview Ravens inside linebacker coach Zach Orr for Green Bay's defensive coordinator position per source. Orr is a former Ravens linebacker who is projected as a DC very soon. Orr has been a close lieutenant to Mike McDonald in Baltimore. So that now makes it 6 total coaches who have been requested to be interviewed by the Green Bay Packers. Only one guy so far, Brandon Staley, has prior defensive coordinator experience. So from the different defensive coordinator candidates Matt LaFleur has interviewed, it looks like his preference and the Packers' preference is to bring on someone who is like a young up-and-comer who has not yet actually been a defensive coordinator. And so, I sort of like the move to go young. I had said in my video where we talked about potential candidates before some of these names came out that I like the idea of Wink Martindale in Green Bay because he's had a lot of success. But I also don't mind the idea of going with some young coaches who could come in their first time as a DC and potentially take this Packers defense to another level. So now I want to look at Dennard Wilson and sort of his history, what he's been doing. So this past year with the Ravens, he was the defensive backs coach. And the Ravens, one of the best defenses in the NFL. They led the league in points allowed, sacks, and takeaways. Their secondary finished number 1 in opponent passer rating. And if we look at some of his history, he was a DB, defensive back, at the University of Maryland for 3 seasons. And now I want to show you his career history from Wikipedia. He was on the Washington Redskins practice squad back in 2004. And then he's been around the NFL for a long time. First off with the Rams defensive quality control coach 2012 to 2014. Stay with them as defensive backs coach another few years. Goes to the Jets for 5 or so years as defensive backs coach, then passing game coordinator and also defensive backs coach. Then with the Eagles a few years as well. 2021 defensive backs coach, 22 passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach. And then this past season, most recently with the Ravens as the defensive backs coach. And I want to take a look at a few different quotes from some players from the Browns Wire. First off here from Darius Slay, who was in Philadelphia when Wilson was there. And he had some high praise for Wilson. He said this: "I'm not going to sit here and play around. Dennard, man, he's been a great coach. He helped me elevate my game to a whole nother level. He ain't never steered me wrong, not once yet. Like I said, I'm just surprised he's been in the game 15 years and not had a defensive coordinator job because he's a smart dude and he played in this league before, so I won't be surprised if sooner or later he has one of them jobs." And then here he was asked about why he should be a defensive coordinator. Slay says this: "Because of the way he can game plan. He's smart. Because everything he's been telling me, him, Gannon, and the whole staff has been telling me, it's been true on the field every time. Even with my film study I do myself, them guys have been right." And I think when you have former players praising a coach and wondering why he hasn't had a job as a defensive coordinator, you just sort of see that players love him, players respect him and the things that he's done and help them individually, also the team. And so I think bringing a guy in who has that trust among players would probably come into Green Bay and, sort of get the same respect. And I think that to have a coach like that players respect and want to play for is important. And then here we have some more. We have from Press of Atlantic City said this: "Cornerback Darius Slay and safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson had openly lobbied for Wilson to be promoted to defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. Slay tweeted on the night of February 24th, about a year ago, 'I know my guy, Dennard Wilson, should be a DC in the NFL.' Within the hour, Gardner-Johnson quote tweeted, 'He helped me elevate my game most definitely.'" The Eagles ended up going another way after last season and not promoting Wilson to defensive coordinator, but the fact that his players were wanting that to happen sort of shows, I think, the kind of coach that he is. And then finally here we have a cornerback from the Ravens this past season who said this. Rock Ya-Sin said, "His, Dennard Wilson's, knowledge of the game is outstanding. Being around him, just the small things. In the meeting rooms and then out there on the field, even after practice, you could hang out with him for 5 or 10 minutes and you just talk ball with him. You feel like you learn so much in such a short amount of time, so I love being around him. Him and passing game coordinator, secondary coach Chris Hewitt, their wealth of knowledge is amazing." So another place, not only in Philadelphia, also in Baltimore with the Ravens, seems to garner the same kind of respect from the guys he was coaching there. And then here's a quote from Wilson himself per Bill Huber, who said this: "I've been doing this a long time, and I've been around some great defensive coordinators, in my opinion. I've been groomed by Greg Williams. I've been groomed by Todd Bowles, who are very good in this league, and they're very thorough." So it looks to me like Wilson has a very long experience. The past few seasons has been around a lot of success on the defensive side of the ball. Players seem to love him, and considering he's, a young coach, 41 years old, somewhat young for a coach, I think that seeing the history he's had, I would not mind him being the defensive coordinator for the Packers. Seems like a solid candidate. And then now the second guy we have, Zach Orr. He's actually only 31 years old, so a lot younger. He played with the Ravens from 2014 to 2016. This is from Wikipedia as well. And then he became a coach back in 2017, defensive analyst with the Ravens, 2017 to 2020, because apparently near the end of his career, he had some kind of spine issue and it was dangerous. And so I guess he sort of left playing and went to coaching. Went to the Jaguars as the outside linebackers coach in 2021, and then back with the Ravens as the inside linebackers coach for the past 2 seasons. So just like Wilson, Dennard Wilson, he's been with the Ravens this past year, which has been one of the best defenses in the NFL. And it's no surprise that LaFleur is trying to bring guys in who have been around a lot of success. And then here's a quote from John Harbaugh, Ravens coach, per Bill Huber, who says this: "He's always got that fire," Ravens coach John Harbaugh said. "You could always count on Zach. If you ask him his opinion, he's telling it to you. You appreciate that because he's got conviction. I see confidence all the time, and now I see even growing competence. He really has learned the game. He was a very smart player who's taken the time to study and learn the game, and he's become a good teacher. He breaks things down well and presents it to the guys very well. He's doing a really good job." So Orr has a little bit less experience when you compare it to Wilson, who has been around the league for a long, long time. But just the fact that both of them have been brought in by Green Bay, the Packers see something there. And with those interviews, they're trying to figure out, okay, does this guy fit our culture, fit our locker room, fit the kind of plan we want to have? And we'll find out when the defensive coordinator is selected who fit the Packers the best. I'm curious to see who that is, but it is cool to see the Packers bring in a ton of young guys, younger coaches without experience. I honestly don't mind it, and I think that it sort of matches the energy of this team. You have the youngest team in the NFL this past season making the playoffs. To bring in a coach who is also maybe has a little bit of that underdog mentality, hasn't really had a chance to prove themselves as a coordinator in this league. They'll have a chance in Green Bay. And when we look at Wilson, the fact that he was interviewed with the Titans, Rams, and Giants, let's say the Packers, in their mind, he was one of the top candidates. If I were Dennard Wilson, I think that if you look at all 3 of those teams, I think the Packers have the best chance of being very successful next season with the offense, with the way that they're playing in Jordan Love. So if I were him, I'd pick the Packers over the Titans, Rams, and Giants. The Rams are pretty good. Titans and Giants, But I think that the Packers, the fact that we have such a young, strong team on offense and tons of players on defense, you would think that defensive coordinators would really like this job because it could give them a chance to come in, have some success. The Packers make the playoffs, play well. One of these guys who becomes defensive coordinator could end up with a head coaching job potentially one day by coming to Green Bay. So that is the most recent news. If you want more Packers news like this, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.